Hi, and welcome to our webinar on using TVAAS to improve instruction. My name is Shannon Moody, and I'm a data analyst with the Tennessee Department of Education. This webinar is intended to support Tennessee educators in gleaning helpful information from their TVAAS report in order to better support their students' learning and growth. So as many of you know, the TVAAS site has a lot of information on it. We're going to focus today on two of the reports on the site, the value-added report and the diagnostic report. These are two of some of the most helpful reports on the site. Today we're going to dive into how to read and act on those reports. But note that there are many more valuable pieces of information on this site. This is simply just a place to get started. Let's first talk about how you find these value-added reports. Once you log into the TVAAS website, you can locate the value-added reports by selecting Reports from the top menu bar. In here, there are two helpful value-added reports, one for your school and then one for you as a teacher. Today, we're going to look at the teacher value-added report. Here's an example of what the teacher value-added report looks like. I'm actually going to switch on over and go to our demo site so you can get the full understanding of how this works and the interactivity in the site. Great. So here we are in the demo site. As I've mentioned, this isn't a real teacher's data. This is just an example for us from our demo site, so we can talk through it today. But this is a sample report for a 6th grade science teacher. One of the first things you may notice is that this report looks a little bit different than it did in years past. It still has the same information, but it's been updated to more clearly convey data to our teachers. There's a green line in the middle of the graph. This is the state standard for growth. If my students are making a similar amount of progress as their peers across the state, then my index score will be near the green line. Students in this particular science teacher's class grew at a similar rate to their peers across the state because his index score is a 0.5 in 2013, and the diamond symbol is near the green line. If his index score is greater than a 1 or falls in the shaded green section, then his students would be growing at a faster rate than their peers. Conversely, if his index score is less than a -1 or falls in the shaded red section, then his students grew at a slower rate than their peers. When it comes to TVAAS performance, the expectation is for students to not lose any ground year to year. The focus of this particular report is on student growth, not whether the students were advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic in the state assessment. For example, this report tells our science teacher that his students are growing on par with their peers and does not share the proficiency levels of their students. Let's talk about how we get into the second report that we find really useful, and that's the teacher diagnostic report. This would allow me as a teacher to take an in-depth look at my class's performance. To get there, we can click on the tab called Teacher Diagnostic at the top of the page. Here you can see the example of the diagnostic report that looks similar to previous years. The diagnostic report uses a graph to show growth you are seeing with 3 different groups of students. In this report, students are bucketed into 3 different groups, 1 being the lowest scored student, and 3 being the highest scoring students. Students are ranked based on their performance compared to their peers across the state. When looking at the graph, you'll see previous years in yellow bars and the most current years in blue bars. On the left of the graph, you'll see growth measures with 0 being like state growth standards, or 1 year's worth of growth. Positive numbers showing growth in the distribution of student performance across the state, and negative numbers showing backwards movement in the distribution. So let's get into how we read this report and how we use it. This teacher's average and high-achieving students made much less than average progress in the past. In the current year, by looking at the blue bar, we see that high-achieving students are now remaining high-achieving. Students at this level are making average progress. Now, students in the middle group are making much better progress than average. They are ending the year at a higher level of attainment than when they entered it. When we take a look at the low achievers, we see that they're not making significantly different progress than the teacher's previous low achievers. They continue to make progress that is close to average. When low achievers make 1 year's worth of growth, they leave the classroom at the same level of attainment. So this teacher may want to examine what he did to improve the progress of the average and high achieving students. So he can first identify what changes should be kept in place to ensure that excellent progress in future years continues for average and high achievers. And to really start to explore the changes that might improve the progress of low achieving students so that they make more than a year's progress. Low achievers who make better than average progress become higher achieving over time. Another part of this report is actually over here in the achievement groups. It allows you to see students that fall in each particular group and look in depth into each student. To see those students, you click on the arrows next to each student achievement group to see which students make up the category. From here, you can understand the performance of each student and their individual growth. To use an example today, I'm going to click on Amos McDonald. Again, this is a demo site, so Amos here is just an example. It's not a real student in Tennessee. Once I click on his name, I see his individual student report. I can see that Amos had impressive growth in my class this year and grew at a faster rate than his peers across the state. Whatever strategies I used with Amos worked really well. So as a teacher, I'm going to reflect on those strategies and consider how I might tailor those strategies and use them for other students in my classroom next year to continue to see this high level of growth. I know we just kind of skimmed the surface on how to start using this report, and I'm really excited to have you dig into the report and look at your individual students' growth and how it can affect your instruction in the classroom over the next year. There's much more information that you can find on TVAAS. As you continue to get into the TVAAS site and look at these reports, you can find tips on using the site by going to our Department of Education website. From there, there's a TVAAS resource page where you can find information on how to continue deepening your knowledge of these reports and how to use this in your classroom. So this concludes our session today on using 2 of the most helpful TVAAS reports that we have. I'm excited to see what you guys do this year, and I wish you happy data analyzing.